Well, folks, in the past 24 to 48 hours, I've had so many people DM me, how's your YouTube pay doing? Like questions like that, like asking me all these questions about YouTube pay and if ad rates are dropping and all these things. And I'm like, this is not normal, okay? Like people usually don't get into my pockets unless it's other YouTubers want to know like how much I'm making and things like that. But it's not very normal for me to get as many messages in the past 24 to 48 hours as I have in regards to how much is YouTube paying me and those sorts of things. And so it kind of led me to think, I'm like, well, like, why is all of a sudden everybody asking me about like YouTube pay and things like that? And so I started thinking, like, what are the other channels that, people watch, obviously. And this is information YouTube gives me here, other channels your audience watches in the last 28 days. And I mean, it should come as no surprise, it's the other big YouTubers, right? Kevin, obviously, Graham, Andre, CNBC, and Millennial Money, which is obviously a channel I'm part of. So it doesn't really come as a surprise that those are the other channels, right? And so I go on YouTube and I'm like, okay, somebody had to have made a video or done something here. And I go onto YouTube, and what's the first video I'm greeted with is not even my man Griffey, okay? He came in number 2, okay? Number 1 video I was recommended was this one here, Recession Danger, revealing my plummeting YouTube pay. And I watched that video Kevin put out, and it's, basically him going into, his YouTube pay and how it's plummeting and those sorts of things. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just address this. I'm gonna show you guys all the numbers in this video, literally down to the penny, exactly how much money I am being paid from YouTube. I'm gonna tell you guys, I got some good news and I got some really bad news to share in this video, okay? And the good news is my YouTube pay's never been higher. The bad news is, and I mean this is really bad news, is it's not for necessarily the reason you want to see. And if you are worried about a recession, what I'm going to show you in this video here is something you definitely got to be very, very worried about, okay? Now, before I get into that real quick, let me address one thing. I saw some people trying to say, am I putting like gray stuff in my hair to try to make my hair look gray? No, it's the light, okay? It's the light at this Arizona house. I swear, I'm not trying to do that touch of gray, or whatever they put in their hair, right? And I understand I'm a TTCF shareholder, so that can make you have some gray hairs, okay? And probably half the stocks I own are heavily shorted stocks, so that can give you some gray hair. But trust me, if I was under the right lighting conditions, my hair wouldn't look great, man, okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. But alrighty, guys, so let's get into the juicy stuff. Okay, so first thing, everybody has to understand about my particular audience, like the people that watch my channel, is heavy North America. I mean heavy. I have one of the most heavy North American audiences you will ever find on YouTube, period. I mean period. I don't care what genre you're talking about, not just finance. This is ridiculous. And I've even compared it with my peers in this industry, the other big, huge finance YouTubers. I don't think anybody has this sort of a percentage of their audience, okay? Now, the reason this is very important to understand here, right, is like this is where you want to be if you want to make a lot of money on YouTube in terms of like how much advertisers are willing to spend. There's a lot of other markets, and I'm not going to mention those markets around the world where other folks might get a lot of viewers from. They don't pay much money. Okay, so you got to understand, like I'm in the finance niche. The finance niche is one of the best in terms of like ad revenue, and I'm in almost everybody that watches my channel is North America. And so when you have those two factors, you're usually gonna do yourself pretty good, even if you're getting much lower views than, let's say, other folks in other industries, or let's say somebody's getting 5x the amount of views I get, for instance. I could still actually make far more money than that individual just based upon the fact that my audience is so far North American and obviously being in the finance niche. So that's something very important to understand here, okay? Next thing is very important to understand is my audience is heavy male, which should not come as a surprise. And by the way, if any females are out there watching this video, shout out to you. Please leave a comment. Even if you're not the type of person to ever leave a comment, all the females out there, say hello, okay? I'm going to try to give you guys all a heart. I appreciate all the ladies that do watch this channel, because it's not very many, okay? I do appreciate you, okay? But the other thing to understand about my particular audience, it skews older, okay? 25 to 55 is my audience. In YouTube years, that's ancient, okay? The other, big YouTubers on YouTube, this is their audience, okay? Really, it's 13 to 24. My audience, even by finance standards, I have one of the oldest audiences out there, and it's not a bad thing, it's actually a good thing, but think about the type of content I put out. It's stock market related, right? And I don't make the type of content that is going to attract necessarily 14, 15-year-olds. If there's any 14 or 15-year-olds, hello to you guys. You're a very small demographic in terms of people that watch my channel. But my videos are not me doing tricks and all this stuff and fancy editing and all these stuff that my peers have, right? And they got the great stuff to attract a younger audience. There's no doubt about that. My videos are not like that. My videos are this, and me showing you data and going over information and what's in the market and what stocks I'm buying and things like that. That's going to attract a much older audience. That's just the bottom line. That's not going to attract younger folks. This is not, that's just my content. A lot of my videos can be 20, 30 minutes. If you have a very low attention span, you're not gonna stick around on my channel. I can promise you that. And I be a lot bigger of a YouTuber potentially if I did all the type of stuff that my other big peers do. I'm sure if I had fancy edits and fancy cameras and plotted all my videos out and did the word for word scripts like my peers do, I'm sure I could get more views. There's no doubt about that. I just have no interest to do that. I like doing what I like to do. It makes me not feel burnt out. I like to talk about what I like to talk about, and even if that sometimes isn't going to be the most thing that's going to bring the most views, I love my audience, and I know my audience loves the stuff I cover, rather than just whatever's the trending topic that day or something like that or that week, okay? And so these are things that are very important to understand about the ad rates I get when you start to see these numbers, because I skew old, which is obviously much, much better if you're an advertiser. I skew North America, okay? So very, very important, and it's finance niche, okay? Alrighty, guys, let's start getting into the numbers. And boy, do I have some scary stuff to share with you here, okay? First one up here, I thought I would show you guys 2019. So in 2019, I made $244,000 from my Big Dog channel. RPM was right around $20. Playback CPM was right around $34. That was a record year for me at that time in 2019. No doubt, very good. I wasn't even close to as popular back then as I am nowadays in 2022, but I got good views, and a lot of my views back then came from these backlog videos I had that I do a lot of stock market for beginners type videos, how to invest $1,000 in the stock market, things like that did pretty well back then. And a lot of Tesla videos back in that day, man, a lot of Tesla videos back then, 2018, 2019, man, there was a lot of Tesla videos. So yeah, that was a record breaking year. Did very well, great, about $250,000 there, okay? Then 2020 hit, and my revenue went crazy, $421,000. I did in 2020. And, first off, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's ever supported the channel, because, without, folks, these numbers wouldn't be possible, right? So I'm always just very, very thankful. My goal was always to make 100K a year. So, the fact that I could, YouTube's kind of my day job, right? My main focus is always on my portfolios and running my portfolios the best of my abilities, right? And listening to conference calls and all those things. But at the end of the day, kind of my day job is doing YouTube, right? And so the fact that I can make that sort of money off YouTube is just, to me, it's still crazy to even think. It's just a blessing. That's all I can say about that. But yeah, it was a record year. Obviously 2020 was a very particular year in the stock market, right? You had the massive crash in March, which was the fastest crash we've ever seen in the stock market ever. It was insane. And then this rally that came out of nowhere. And even folks like myself were surprised at how fast stocks came back to, the markets came back to record highs 6 months later. No one saw that coming. No one saw that coming, including myself. It was insane. So there was a lot of money to be made in the stock market. Plus, everybody was pretty much forced to be home. So you had everybody forced to be home. Stocks were tearing it up. My stocks were tearing it up. The market was tearing it up. And you were coming off a crash. Oh my gosh, okay? And so that's how you end up making $421,000. And that same year, I was also going hard on another channel I had that I used to run back in the day at that time, which was called Financial financial education too, which made six figures that year as well. So 2020 was ridiculous, okay? Very, very ridiculous year. And just like, it was kind of the perfect storm, for somebody like myself that just happened to be talking about stock market stuff. It was really good. Playback CPMs, $33 there. RPMs was right around $20 roughly there for 2020, okay? Then 2021 hit, which was last year. So $274,000 made in 2021. Now, look at in 2021, this is interesting. RPM dropped quite a bit, okay? Playback CPM dropped quite a bit. But we still made $274,000 on the Big Dog channel, okay? But what about this year in 2020? 2022. Wish we'd go back to 2020. No, definitely don't go back there, okay? 2022, what about this year? And let me show you that number, and then I got to explain some very scary stuff that's going on here, essentially, okay? Well, it's going to be a record breaker, like, unless I just clock out or something like that. Like, it's going to be a record-breaking year. So far already, we're at $214,000 so far in 2022. We're not even halfway through the year yet, right? So, it should be a record breaker and like a huge record breaker, like not even close, right? So it's good, good, like awesome. And once again, thank you for everybody that obviously supports the channel and watches videos and things like that. Like, it's awesome, right? And, there's no doubt, like it's going to be a pretty intense kind of revenue year. But we got problems, and I'm talking big problems, okay? So far this year, we've gotten almost 15 million views on this channel. Almost 15 million views in 2022, all right? So that number's up 86%. Views are up, right? Watch time's up 126%. Subscribers up 125%. Revenue's up 64%. Something's not adding up there. Something's not quite adding up. So views are far and away better than they've ever been. Watch times, ridiculous, over double what it usually is. Subscribers are way better than they've ever been. I still cover the same type of content. It's all stock market related content. But yet revenue's not even remotely close to up the same amount views. So we got issues here, because usually revenue should be right in line with these numbers here. If not, usually how it was is it would outpace it. So let's say views were up 86%, then revenue would likely be up 112% or 120% or something like that. Like, that's how it traditionally was on YouTube. Like, if you got more views, it just meant even a bigger percent of your revenue being up, because usually, like, advertisers are being willing to pay more and more. So clearly there's something wrong here. And I mean something very wrong, because this number is not just performing worse. It's performing far worse, like massively worse than these other numbers. And the watch time is the most important number. So we're talking about like a 50% discrepancy there, okay? Not a small amount. That's an issue, right? And when you see this, it looks great. Like, that's the biggest month we've ever had, $50,000 on the main channel. We've never had a month clear 50,000. In May, we just did 50,000. Like, that's literally an all-time record. So, that is very deceiving. It's a very deceiving number. Because you're looking at this and it's like, wow, it's better than it's ever been, but it's so dang deceiving, man. It's so deceiving. See, here's the thing. If we pull up the 2019 numbers and we pull up the 2022 numbers so far, look at how far off RPM is. Look at how far off playback-based CPM is. That's almost a $10 difference, guys. Almost a $10 difference. So what you're looking at there and why that matters so much is that's basically showing you that advertisers are pulling back massively, and they're not spending nearly, not even remotely close to as much to get in front of folks' face as they used to, right? That is an issue, and I mean a huge issue. And so if you're thinking about recession and you're thinking about one of those things to keep an eye on for recession, dang, you got something there, man. Because the flat out God's honest truth is advertisers are clearly not willing to spend what they used to be willing to spend in past years, which means advertisers aren't getting the bang for their buck they used to, right? Which means ultimately businesses are not spending as much as they used to want to spend, right? Now, that's not good news for Google. I can tell you that much. It's not good news for Google. It's not good news for anybody that's in the advertising space, which makes sense because if you look at, like, for instance, Meta's earnings, not exciting right now. I'm hoping they get better in the back half of this year and obviously into 23, but they're not exciting right now. And like, if it's not good for Meta, it's not good for Google. Like, all these players kind of play in the same pool. Like, at the end of the day, Google and Facebook own advertising, okay? And the third big dog is Amazon now. Those guys own advertising. And so if you see this, that's definitely scary. That's definitely very, very scary for if you're thinking about recession worries. Very scary, okay? So the moral of this story is kind of 5 parts here. And then I want to cover one last thing that was I saw mentioned in that Kevin video, which was around sponsors and things like that. We'll talk about that for just a moment. But the moral of the story is ad rates are bad right now, really bad, which means companies aren't advertising nearly as much or willing to pay as much to get in front of people's faces. Bottom line, okay, ad rates are bad. My channel views are by far, in a way, at all-time highs this year. Like, it's a crusher of a year. It's crazy. We're going to likely blow away 2020's numbers. Assuming I stay motivated and I keep posting this whole year, like, it's going to be just a crusher of a year. My revenue is at all-time highs, but it's because of views. It's because of views. It's not because advertisers are necessarily paying a bunch of money, as we saw. It's because views are so high on my channel. That's why revenue looks so great, right? And fourth thing is, I've been fortunate to build a very strong audience since 2016. And my folks are the core stock market folks. So while there's definitely a lot of people that got into this covering stock market related content in 2020 and 2021, they ended up acquiring a lot of folks that aren't even really into the stock market. The people that follow me are the most core stock market folks you'll ever find. And I thank you to all you guys that obviously support the channel, but you guys are like diehard stock market people. You're like me, right? You love to keep up with what's going on in the market. You love to always be researching stocks and investing money and just paying attention to what's going on in the market and different people's opinions and things like that. So I'm fortunate, like, I've always been to this like very core audience that is the diehard people around the stock market, and not like the people that are just coming in to gamble a little bit of money and get out and get back in, that's not my audience. That's not my thing. That's not the type of people I attract. And so, that I'm just very thankful for everybody that's obviously, been here for a long time and continues to be here. And number 5 is I'm as active on YouTube as I've ever been, ever. I feel needed for the first time probably since March, April 2020. 2021 was a year where I would call myself almost slacked a bit because it was very just demotivating to me personally. There's so much pump activity in the market. There's just a lot of stocks were going crazy. It didn't make any sense. And everybody thought all these stocks are going to go to the moon forever or something like that. And so I actually feel needed in the stock market for the first time in honestly a long, long time. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to touch on here is sponsors, right? So companies. Now, I have heard from some creators of companies pulling back where they're canceling deals, things like that. Not to a huge extent, just a little bit. I can tell, for me personally, I haven't had any issues, thank goodness, with that. But I also don't do a lot of deals with sponsors. FTX US is a great sponsor for the channel and a great partner of mine, right? But I don't do like a million different sponsors, this one, that one. So, that's a hard subject for me to speak on, to be quite honest. But I do know overall, it seems like a lot of companies have pulled back budgets from what I'm hearing, especially from folks that work with a lot of different companies and things like that. It sounds like, if anything, a lot of have pulled back a bit, but not to the extent where it's like not spending anything. Let's just put it that way. It's just kind of like, companies wanting to partner with the folks that give them the best bang for their buck and those sorts of things, and being more selective, I guess you can say, than in the past. So that's what I've seen there. So anyways, guys, I just want to clear all that up, and I hope you enjoyed kind of, me getting into very personal stuff here, obviously. And like I said, I was very appreciative to everybody that always watches the channel and checks out all the new videos I come out with and things like that. Even when sometimes YouTube doesn't send them to you, or even if you got notifications on, sometimes YouTube doesn't send those out, man. I don't know what's up with that, but I appreciate all you guys. Much love as always, and have a great day.